Alright, I have already taped down my paper onto a board. Make sure all the sides are firmly fixed because we'll be using wet on wet technique and we don't want any water to seep in through. Now I'm going to start with the pencil sketch. It's a very simple sketch. I'm adding a horizon line first. Then I will add two layers of mountain, one in the foreground and one in the background. The one in the foreground that I'm adding now, it's going to be in green, and the other one which is in the background, it is going to be a snowy mountain. Okay, we have the pencil sketch ready. Now for the sky, I'm using cerulean blue and a pinch of Payne's grey. You can use any blue that you have got. I will squeeze out a little of both the shades onto my palette. Okay, we'll start by applying an even coat of water onto the sky. This one is my Princeton Elite wash brush. It's a 3x4 inch wash brush and I'm going to apply a clean even coat of water onto the sky. Make sure there is no pools of water in between. Now I'm switching to my size number 8 silver black velvet brush. This is a round brush. You can use any of your medium sized round brush. Now I'm going to make a medium tone of cerulean blue onto my sky, leaving some white gaps in between, which is going to be the clouds. You can see the shapes I left in between. It is just paper white. Now I'm going to wash off the paint from my brush and I'm switching to Payne's grey, a very light tone of Payne's grey, and I'm going to add the shadow for all these clouds. Take a lighter tone of Payne's grey on your brush and just over here, right at the bottom of these shapes we left, add in a tint of Payne's grey. You need to do this step right after you have added your blue. You shouldn't be waiting for too long. If you wait for too long, the color won't blend into the background. It will stay as some rough and strong patches. So make your background wet first, then add in the blue, leaving some shapes in between. Then onto the bottom part of that shape, add in Payne's grey, a very light tone. Now I have washed off the paint from my brush and I'm dabbing that on a paper towel, and with a clean damp brush I'm just making these patterns blend into the background so that the shadow will have a very subtle look and it won't stay very prominent. The sky is done and everything has beautifully dried. Now let's paint the mountains, the one in the background. For that I'm going to use indigo. You can use any other blue that you have got if you don't have indigo. While we added the pencil sketch, we added an irregular line in the middle for all these mountains. Now onto the right side of all these mountains, we'll be adding a lighter tone of indigo. That is going to be the first step. So I just followed that irregular line in the middle and I added a light tone of indigo onto the right side. Now onto the left side, I'm going to add few random streaks of indigo. Make sure you're using a very light tone and add some random shapes. Now I'm going to do the same onto the other mountain. So that's a base layer. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller size round brush. This is size number 4 silver black velvet brush. You can use any of your medium or smaller size brush. Now we are going to add some dry brush patterns onto this mountain to make it look more realistic. We are going to add a lot of textures onto it. Grab a piece of paper towel. This is going to help you while you add your dry brush patterns. Now load your brush with paints gray or black. Once you have added that onto your brush, dab it on a paper towel and remove the excess amount of water from your brush. We just need a dry kind of paint on your brush. When you dab your brush on a paper towel, the paper towel will absorb all the water content and it will leave the paint dry. This will really help you while you add your dry brush patterns. You're going to get those patterns very easily. Now once you have that dry paint on your brush, just run your brush on the mountain. If you're not too sure about the pattern that you're gonna get, maybe you can try out the same on a scrap piece of paper first. And when you're sure about your patterns, you can do that on the mountain. There is no rule here. You can simply add the dry brush pattern onto your mountain. I'm going to add more on the right side where I have added that indigo shade. And onto the left side, I will be adding very little. Just follow that irregular line we added in the middle and add in your dry brush patterns however you want to. Make sure not to go overboard. Okay, so that is how your mountain is going to look once you have finished adding the dry brush patterns. Now I'm going to do the same onto the other two left. Alright, with that we are done with the mountain in the background. You can see how gorgeous our snowy mountain is looking. Now let's go with the other one in the foreground. For this one, I'm going to use sap green. Clean your brush properly before you switch to sap green. The one I'm using here is from the brand PWC. You can use any of the sap green that you've got, the brand doesn't matter. Now I'm going to switch to my size number 8 round brush. Let me take out a little of paint on my palette, and we're going to apply a medium tone of green onto this mountain here. We'll just follow the line we added and simply fill up that entire area in an even wash of green. Now before that background layer dries, we need to add in our deeper tones. I'm using indigo here, and I'm mixing a little of green into that to get a deeper tone of green. And I'm simply adding some streaks onto the mountain. There is no specific shape or pattern that I'm following. Just adding some random lines. As our background is wet, this will nicely merge into the background, giving us some textures. Now before that background layer dries, I'm quickly switching to indigo and I'm going to add some rough shape of trees right at the horizon line. Alright, with that we are done with the mountain in the foreground and in the background. I'm going to wash off the paint from my brush and we are switching to yellow. This one is cadmium yellow light, again from PWC. If you don't have cadmium yellow, you can use gamboge yellow. That works absolutely fine. Make sure you have cleaned your brush properly before you add in your yellow. We need a fresh and clean coat of yellow over the bottom. Okay, now simply apply yellow over the entire bottom area, starting from the horizon line till your masking tape. Now as I'm about to reach the bottom line, I'm going to switch to sap green and I'm going to add a lighter tone of sap green over here. So on the top, the area which is closer to the horizon line, we need fresh and bright yellow, and over to the bottom you can add in some green tones. Now switching to indigo and adding more deeper tones of green right over the bottom, just along that masking tape line. So you have yellow and medium tones of green and a very deep tone of green over the bottom. Now I need a green which is a little more deeper, so I'm going to mix a pinch of paint grey into indigo and I'm going to add that over the bottom. Now along with that, I'm going to add in few dotted pattern over here. This will add more textures to my background and my meadow will look more beautiful. Just focus on that bottom area and add in few random dots. Once I'm done adding the dots using this darker tone, I will be switching to sap green and I will be doing the same onto that yellow background. When you're doing this step, make sure your green is very light in tone. You shouldn't be going with a deeper tone of green. And also don't go overboard and add a lot of patterns. We need to see that yellow and few tones of green here and there and a darker tone of green over the bottom. So we need to see all sort of greens and yellow over here. Don't cover up the entire yellow background. Okay, the background is ready. Now I'm switching back to my size number 4 round brush and I'm going back to yellow. Now onto this wet background which I have at the bottom, I'm going to add some yellow dots. Now as the background is wet, these yellow dots we are adding will spread and create an abstract flower sort of an effect over here. You can add in as many dots as you want. You can see over this area my background has dried, which is completely okay. You just need to add in some yellow dots. Maybe at some places your background is still wet. At those areas, make use of the time and quickly add some yellow dots. We are doing this step just to add in a lot of textures over the bottom. We'll be coming back with a solid yellow shade once everything has dried. So it's completely okay if your background is not looking that great. Once we add the final batch of flowers, it is going to look really gorgeous. So don't worry about that messy process in between. Now I'm going to switch to white. This is white watercolor, again from the brand PwC. To add in more textures, I'm going to splatter some white over the bottom. Cover up the top area using a magazine or a paper towel. And just splatter some white watercolor onto that bottom area where you have that darker tones. So I have splattered enough of white over there. Now using my brush, I'm adding some bigger patterns as well. Alright, our background is ready. We have got enough of textures over there. You can see that transition from yellow to that deeper green. And we have created a nice abstract meadow over there. Now I'm going to switch to yellow, which is of a little thicker consistency. I'm not going to add a lot of water, and using that thick paint, I'm going to add some flowers over the bottom. I will be doing the same with white as well. You can see I went in with a very basic shape for the flower. It is not a very detailed shape. Now I'm switching to Payne's Grey, a delicate thin stem for all these flowers here. Okay, so this is where we have reached so far. You can see those yellow flowers. They are looking very prominent as the background is really dark. Now I'm going to repeat the same using white watercolor, and after that I will repeat the same onto the other side as well. We are done adding flowers on the right side. Now let's do the same onto the left side. I'm starting with yellow and I'm adding those yellow flowers first. Then I will add a thin delicate stem using paint gray. And after that I will do the same using white. This one is titanium white by PWC. Okay, let's go ahead and add the final batch of flowers. Now let's do the same using white. Add in as many flowers as you want. You can see the shape I'm adding here. It's a very basic shape. If you are patient enough, maybe you can go with a more detailed shape. Okay, all the flowers are in. Now we are going to add the stem for all these flowers. Start with a dot, add that dot for all these flowers, and from that dot add a thin delicate line, just a freehand line. Okay, with that we are done with our painting. If you want, you can add some birds onto the sky. I'm gonna leave it as it is. I hope you all enjoyed painting this floral meadow. If you have gouache instead of the yellow and white watercolor, while you're adding the flowers, you can use your gouache to get a more opaque looking flower. Wait for your painting to dry completely before you remove your masking tape. My painting has completely dried and I'm gonna peel off the masking tape. When I'm peeling it off, I'm doing it at an angle so that my paper won't come off. And here is the final painting. I hope you all enjoy the process. If you are trying this painting and if you are posting that onto Instagram, don't forget to tag me. My Instagram handle is Aurora by Z. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do subscribe so you will get notified whenever I upload a new video. Alright, thanks a lot for watching and happy painting.